Angus didn't know it, but the climbing portion of the pathway would only take about 10 minutes until the way ahead became the easiest and gentlest incline he'd see on the cliff face. What he did know was that his shoulders were aching, his soaked boots and socks were definitely going to result in blisters later, and his hands were covered in little scrapes and cuts from the rocks that were making it much harder to grip anything. This time, when he looked up, he could see the edge of the wall he was dragging himself upwards, and it gave him courage to stretch his hand towards the next hold. Each one was well defined, sticking out as clearly as possible from the rest of the rock in an immediately identifiable pattern. Angus thanked whoever had carved them in his heart, as his throat was too raw and dry to let any words escape it at that moment. His fingertips and palms felt the same, and when he paused to look, there was definitely some blood. The old adage of putting your blood, sweat, and tears came to mind, and Angus idly wondered if he'd end up crying at some point as well. He chuckled to himself, letting the idle thought distract him from the screaming nerve endings in his hands and the burning muscles across the rest of his body. He was nearly to the edge of his cliff, just a little further, a few more handholds and he'd have it. One more, he was there. Pulling hard, he managed to get both elbows over the edge and drag the rest of his body up. He had been expecting to see the rest of the island, maybe a valley, but no. There was about 6 feet of flat ground, and then another cliff. Angus wanted to scream, but refrained. He didn't have enough air in his lungs for the scream he wanted to let out. So instead he hung his head briefly, regrouped, accepted the false hope he'd had, and rolled over to lay down for a while. This landing was large enough, and it felt sturdy enough for him to stretch out and rest on, and maybe look at the state of his hands when he got the strength to lift his arms again. He closed his eyes, fully intending to only rest them for a minute or two, but against his will, Angus fell asleep.